Hey everyone, welcome to Lessons from the Tank. For our first episode, I thought that it was only fitting that we would have Tiffany Krumins, season number 1, episode number 1, winner number 1 of Shark Tank, as our first guest. She has amazing things to say about how your passion will lead you through when things get rough. She also talks about doing things that you have never done before. You are going to get so much out of this episode. Thank you so much for being a part of what we are doing here at Lessons from the Tank. Enjoy.
Next up, Tiffany Krumins, who is sure she has an idea that will make millions. Will she sink or swim with the sharks?
Welcome, Tiffany. Thank you so much for being the very first guest on the Lessons from the Tank podcast. I just thought it was fitting that you were the first one to come on. So thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a little spotty there for a minute. I've been trying to get on with you guys today and we kept losing electric. So it's bright in here again and I'm ready to record.
We're so excited. So for those of you that don't know that are listening, Tiffany was season number 1, episode number 1, and deal number 1 of the entire Shark Tank show. So, my goodness, I watched the episode last night. I had seen it before, but I watched it with new eyes last night. And my goodness, the show has changed so much. It's amazing. I mean, there was...
Well, it was the pilot episode. So, yeah, it's changed drastically. It actually had a budget after my episode.
Yeah, so you did a lot of, now we're a little bit spoiled. The people that have been on in the recent years, they kind of fly you out and they actually give you money for food and all that stuff. There's producers that they walk with you through the entire process. This was all on your dime, right? When you flew out. I mean, they had no idea if this was going to be a success.
Right. So when I went on the first episode, it was a Craigslist ad that I responded to. A friend had sent it to me and said, I think this applies to your idea. And so I submitted for the audition. And when I was going to California, I literally had to buy my own airline ticket. And I flew out there and they put us up in a hotel for 2 nights. And the filming was completely different than what you experienced. It was literally just a recording studio in one of the filming hangars, basically, where it's typically set up once a show has a budget. You've got all these, like you said, craft food and all this stuff. Well, on a pilot, it's the opposite. We literally sat in fold-out metal chairs in like a warehouse looking area, waiting our turn to pitch. And I got ready that morning at, I think, 6 a.m. and I didn't pitch until 10 at night. So I looked like I felt by that point when I went into pitch, and it's just a completely different experience. Now, like you said, they fly you guys out. I mean, I think everybody this last season, because of COVID, stayed in Vegas for a week. I'm just like, oh, it must be so terrible to do that kind of filming.
Yeah, I actually had a trailer for a day. Like that was,
oh my god,
makeup people. It was fantastic.
Shut up.
Now, one of the things that I am sure didn't change was, the nervousness and excitement and that anticipation that has caused all of us to kind of become these, like foxhole brothers. You know what I mean? Like we've all gone through this shared experience. What was your experience like? I mean, because I was terrified. I don't know about you, but I was really nervous.
You were nervous because you had watched seasons and seasons of the show.
Very true.
I was very grateful, actually, when I look back, that I didn't know who these people were. So when I went on, they handed me 5 sheets of paper. They said, these are the investors you're pitching to, read up on them. And that's all I knew about these people. I had no idea Kevin O'Leary was, a shark. I had no idea any of these people, what their personalities were like. So I went in kind of naive, and just walked up and gave them what I had. And that was that. And I didn't really know that they could, dig into me the way they do people now on later seasons, which was a blessing because I was very naive.
Yeah, I like even the way that you seem so casual about it. Just watching it, you're just like, you kind of went back, like got your prototype, so it just seemed like you had a calm about you that I probably haven't seen. I certainly didn't see it, from the people that were taping when I was out there. But
Right.
but yeah, it was just so
Well,
much
thank
fun.
you.
Yeah, you did.
Thank you. I think I was calm because I knew I had a good idea. You know, my thing was I knew my lane, I knew my industry, I knew these children with special needs, and that's all I could really give. And if they didn't understand that or they couldn't, you know, be invested in that, that was okay by me. I just knew that I knew what I could give and I had to put it on the table. So I think that's where that piece came from. I was okay with walking away without a deal.
Yeah, even when you got the first of millions of this is an idea, not a business from the sharks, which you hear over and over and over again. You didn't lose it. Like you just did a fantastic job, and
you know what though? They were right. They were spot on. And when I look back, knowing what I know now, having gone through this whole experience, I mean, they were exactly right. Barbara was so kind to take a gamble on me, and the rest were exactly right. It was an idea and it wasn't a full-blown business. And I didn't know that at the time because unlike you went in with a full-blown business. You already knew business. You had built a company. I had literally prototypes in my hand, had no idea how to manufacture a product, had no idea how to distribute it. And so, yeah, when looking back, I agree with them, and I'm glad that Barbara took that chance on me.
Yeah, and we were talking beforehand. I mean, you and Barbara, again, this was new for her as well. Now they're old hats at it. They're like, I got 12 years, give me an idea, I'll run with it. That's they know what to do. They know they have the contacts. But you said that you guys really walked hand in hand through this process of commercializing your idea. What was that like?
Yes. Yeah, because so Barbara was obviously a mogul in real estate. She had just sold her business for a lot of money. She knew that industry very well. She had not, I don't think she had ever before my product invested in a product and launched a product. And so, yeah, it was us learning it together. Now I learned most of it as the business owner. She was my investor, but so much of that she tried to do with me. We tried to find, how do you get product over from another country? How, all of the, it was an FDA registered product. We didn't know that. There were all these things we had to learn. I didn't know that this was injection molded. I didn't know what material it needed to be made out of. I had to learn pretty much anything and everything there is to know about manufacturing in a 6-month period because I filmed in, about 9 realistically. I filmed in January and it aired in August. And so I had that amount of time. And unfortunately, I was actually diagnosed with cancer shortly after coming home from the show. So in the mix of learning how to manufacture this product and sell it, I was battling cancer. So it became quite a challenge, obviously. But Barbara was an incredible mentor, saw me through all of that. And it's really where our bond came from.
One of the things that I've talked about quite a few times with both individual people as well as interviews that I've done is how important good partners are. And this isn't the lesson that we're going to learn today, but my goodness, is that makes such a big difference, especially when you're going through something, a health issue or a downturn or a challenge that you weren't expecting. Having someone just to be there and help you through that is huge. And it was definitely a rarity because Barbara was not the typical investor. I mean, I don't think most investors do what she does. And so I tell her story and I tell the story of her being that way with me, but I also encourage people to realize that that's not what you're going to typically get from an investor. You're going to get someone expecting their money back at a certain time, and there may be very little communication. And that may even be the case now with a lot of the sharks. They may not communicate that much. I just had kind of this dream scenario with how it all went down that she was learning when I was learning, and she happened to care for me and I cared for her. That's fantastic. And you held up your product. So for those of you that can't see what it is, can you give like a little description so that
yes.
I mean, first of all, it's genius. I do have to have to say it is. I have 4 kids and I have 4 grandkids, and like, oh my goodness, like this is it's amazing. Like trying to give them medicine is insane.
Ava the Elephant is one of those products that you either really need it or you have no desire to buy this product, and that's okay. Because there are some parents that don't have a problem with medication, but the ones who do, I mean, they get it and they live by it. We've had parents reach out over the years whose children who have had transplants, and they have to take 20 medications a day. And this is a product that made their children interested in taking their medication again and essentially saved their life with that because they were struggling to get these medications down their throat, essentially. So Ava is a singing children's medicine dispenser. She's basically a little elephant that covers a custom syringe that we've designed a 10 milliliter syringe, and the toddler or baby basically sucks on the trunk of Ava, and you just administer the medicine at the same time. But this is the little song that she sings. I don't know if you can hear it. And so she used to not sing. I told you this story off the air earlier, but I'll tell it again really quickly. It did have just a quick little saying of 1, 2, 3, open wide. And I did that saying because when I first went to Barbara, again, we were manufacturing this product. They asked me for the sound bite at the factory. They said, we need the MP3 of this sound that's going to be on your product so we can make the sound boxes. And I went back to Barbara and said, who do we hire for this? Do we get a voiceover? Do we get a radio person? And she said, no, you recorded the sound boxes I used on Shark Tank were actually Build-A-Bear recordable sound boxes. So I went to Build-A-Bear. I got the little tiny round boxes that you put your voice on. I recorded it on each one. I glued it to the back of my homemade clay prototype that I took on the show, which is still now kind of blows my mind. And that's how they heard the sound originally. And so she said, that's what I want you to do, is go and record the same voice. And so I did. And I had to, as I told you earlier off the air, I had to listen to myself for 7 years until we recorded this sweet little jingle with my oldest daughter. Every time a kid played it for me, or I played it on a television show, or my children pressed it, I had to listen to my own voice. So it was pretty painful.
So there's so much that you said here over the last 3 minutes. I mean, the first is, this was a passion project for you based off of a need that you had from a child that you were caring for. Again, and I got that from some of the history that from different interviews that you've gotten. So the fact that this was personal to you, that passion that you had for it, I have to imagine, you didn't have a lot to lose, quote unquote, as you were going through this, and then you got sick. At some point, you could have just been like, "I'm done. Like, this is too much."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but you didn't. Like, what kept? Was it the passion that you had for it that kept you going? I mean.
It was never about money for me. As you could see on the show, I didn't do a great job negotiating the money. Money was never my driver. It was that first experience with Gibby that was really my inspiration every time I wanted to quit. So, and when I was going through radiation and my cancer extended past when I thought it would, when I was still going through treatments a couple years later, my motivation was when my product was already on the market, and I would get those emails from parents who said, my child with special needs responds very well to this product, did not before. Thank you so much. And I knew that I was just filling this little, even if it was a kind of a niche market and it was, a certain amount of kids that I was helping, I was so happy to be helping those kids. And I give that advice often. I think it's so good for your people listening to know that they must be very passionate about whatever it is they're going into, because it's going to beat you up. This product development distribution world, as you know, is brutal. It is like no other. I've never seen anything like it. And it can just chew you up and spit you out. And so if you're not really passionate about what it is you're selling and you don't love it with your whole heart, then you might have a hard time surviving.
Yeah, you have to get really good at the internal pep talks. There's been so many times, we've been in business for, we've actually been manufacturing for about 6 years now. And there's so many times over that time where I'm like, okay, today's the day I quit. I'm done. They've pushed me too far. I'm done. This is over.
Right.
And then so you feel sorry for yourself for 10 seconds and you're like,
yep.
All right, but we're going to go do it anyway. All right. So let's get
Brush
up.
it off. Yep. Keep going.
Pull the big boy pants on and let's go do it.
It's not easy owning a small business, and people, you hear the people who are ignorant to it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They're just ignorant because they've never built a business that say stuff like, oh, it must be nice to own a business. Oh, you must be rich because you own a business. And that is rarely the case. My dad grew a business when I was 5. He left the military with very little skills for a job set anyway, and went into starting a business he knew nothing about, just like me. And he ran that business for 35 years. Last year, after we lost my mom, tragically, he had to close that business. And he got no financial gain when he closed that business. It wasn't like he could sell it. It wasn't the type of company where it could be acquired. But we look back on that and we go, wow, my dad supported our entire family and my mom through all of those medical things with this business that he built. And that's something to be proud of. But he was never rich. He was never somebody who was wealthy off this company. He worked his butt off every day, start to finish, and was proud to say that he was a business owner. But that's sometimes as good as it gets. I just want people to know that. And the same for us, right? I mean, you were on TV, I was on TV. We have the same small businesses. Yes, we've gotten more exposure. Yes, at times we get big bumps in sales because of television, but we're still running our business every day, and it can be brutal.
It can be I think people call them wantrepreneurs that are out there.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, download my my course and you'll be a millionaire too. I just think that it's so dangerous because so many young people. I had a conversation with my nephew last weekend. He's 17 years old and he's like, I want to go into business for myself. I'm like, that's great, dude. That's fine. That's fun. What I mean? It's fun to think about. But go get a job first, like go out and get some skills and figure out what you want to do, because it's not get rich quick. It's grind through it every single day. And hopefully something, like a Shark Tank happens that propels you forward, or something great happens. But for most small businesses, to your point about your dad, that's exactly it. You provide for your family. Maybe you get a little bit more freedom in some ways because of the business. In some ways, you get a lot less freedom.
Exactly.
But you're doing it for your love of what you're doing, not necessarily to go out and make $1 bazillion. It's just.
Yeah, and to not be, to not have a boss. That one's overused. Oh, I'm going to do this so I don't have somebody to answer to. You still got a ton of customers to answer to and all sorts of things to do. But yeah, that was my dad's thing. As he, after leaving the military, I think he really wanted to be in control of what he was doing. And so, yeah, he got to have, like you said, it was kind of an ebb and flow of the pros and cons. But he had that freedom in the sense of controlling his company, but then he had all the responsibility of everything else with the business. So I also try to speak from a very real place on that, because I think it's so detrimental to people to make it seem like it's all rainbows and butterflies, because it's far from it.
It is. And, my family, my father had a business that failed. And, that's not fun going through that.
No.
The statistics are, if you start a small business, the odds are pretty good that you're not going to hit a home run on the first one. They're more than likely you're going to strike out. But you have to be okay with that. Where you go, hey, look, this is, I'm going to get a lot of experience from this. And the next time I try it, if I still want to try it again, I'll do things differently. And
move on quickly, right?
Move on quickly.
I see so many people who don't move on quickly, who hold on for dear life to their product or their company. And sometimes that can be a bad thing. But isn't that kind of that's also a catch-22. People tell you, don't give up, keep fighting for your business. But then sometimes you got to throw in the towel, right?
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, yeah, this just isn't. Again, I think probably the same with you. A lot of times it's not, the frustrations don't come from my business is going down, it's going under, things like that. It's the day-to-day stressors of owning the business that are tough for most people. They can't get by.
For me, I didn't make, people think when I went on the show, they see me getting this investment from Barbara. That was an investment in the company. Whatever she gave me in those first however many years went into product development, went into producing the product to make it, to get it to CVS, to get it to Target, whoever it was, and get it back out to the customer. And I didn't make a salary for many, many years. 3 or 4 years, I didn't make a dime on my company. So people have to realize that they're not going to probably make any money themselves. Even if the company is doing well and making money, they're probably not going to profit in the first however many years.
Yeah, I love.
Okay, so we've been nothing but negative.
Let's get rid of the negativity. But from my side, I wouldn't have this any other way. I love being an entrepreneur. I absolutely love owning my own business. I love providing jobs for our 100+ employees. It's fantastic. But most entrepreneurs need some advice. I needed tons of advice. I still go to a lot of my partners and business mentors for advice. So what have you learned through this experience that might be something that we can plant into some of the people that are listening?
Lots of stuff, right? Lots and lots of stuff in 10 years, but I'm trying to think of a specific piece of advice in the product development space. I think it goes back to what I just told you about moving on quickly from failure. With product development, you've got to be able to, I see a ton of products now because I do actual development in one of my other companies. We are submitted products all the time. And I sadly see people not move on quickly enough. I've probably had, 300 ideas in the last 10 years that I've actually moved forward with, started some of the development on to see is this a feasible product before scratching the product and saying, no, not going forward with this. Some of those I've seen come out in other companies and succeed. And I go, dang, I shouldn't have gone forward with that one. But I wish people would move on more quickly from their ideas if they're in product development. They need to be digging deeper into them in the beginning, investing less and digging more into, is this a feasible idea? And you and I both have seen people instead where they jump in feet first and they put in, $20,000 into a patent and another 30 into some scam company who has ripped them off. And then they wasted anything and everything they could possibly invest in a real company on this one idea versus really vetting their ideas over and over and over again and finding that one. Like Ava was obviously my first hit, and I've had others since that I've licensed. But it took me going through, like I said, 300 products to get there. I've licensed 2 others besides Ava. I've got Ava that's now being managed by a different company, essentially licensed again. So that's 3 out of 300, Right. I just wish people would move on more quickly in their development process.
Yeah, and I really like what you said before. When you were pitching to the Sharks, you used what you had. It was a clay prototype with a a voice box from Build-A-Bear, and you went on national TV.
Yes.
To your point, I've had lots of people. Again, Shark Tank is a magnet for people wanting advice. So we have people reach out to us. And exactly it. They're paying a development company, tens of thousands of dollars to come up with a prototype, and they've never shown it to anybody, or they, they've never presented the idea to anyone that might have a good opinion in that space.
And it's unnecessary. It's so often unnecessary in the beginning to have that prototype. It really is. Every single product I've seen, or at least 90% of the products I've seen over the years could have been made at home, could have been made by a college class that works on prototypes, 3D printing. All of these things could have been done at a very low budget versus what we've seen over and over again, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 wasted for a product they don't even move forward with. So if you're in this product development space and you want to be an inventor, do as we're saying and create these things yourself, or use, some resources that you have. So that you're not wasting this money and just throwing in the trash for a product that you might not even move forward with.
What I found is, through this, not Shark Tank, but through the development, within my industry, there's several large companies, I'm in the window and door industry. So several large companies that are like, hey, if you have a great idea for the window and door industry, let us know, again, big brand names. And I think every industry is the same. They want new ideas. It just takes some research to find those companies that are looking for that. Getting a simple NDA that you can download, for free, which again costs nothing. And then, if your idea is good enough, they'll help you with the development. Or
I highly recommend going that route. That is the best route for every single inventor out there. If you could license an idea and not put any of your funding into it. I have an engineer that I use, Noah McNeely, on everything. He's he's a good dear friend of mine now, but he's also our engineer at Mom Genius. And then I use him on other products. And he says all the time, I would never invest my kids, college tuition or even our savings in a product idea. He said, I haven't come to one yet. And this man has developed product for some of the biggest brands in the world. He worked at a different company previously where he designed products for these major brands. And he's like, I've yet to see one that I would put my money into to that extent, all of my savings. And so we encourage inventors to do the exact same thing. Try to come up, like you said, do an NDA, do a provisional patent, and do a simple prototype, and then try to license it. Because then you could license, 3 or 4 ideas off, get mailbox money on them, see them actually come to fruition, not, waste all of your money. And like you said, I didn't know that a lot of the window and door companies were that open to it. That's pretty exciting.
It is. Because again, in our space, there just isn't much new. The fact that, a window screen is like the sexiest thing to come into the window and door space is that kind of tells you how far behind we are. But but talk about real quick, provisional patents. A lot of people did. And again, I didn't know this going in, provisional patents, you can do them by hand. You can draw some stuff up, write things out and get it submitted for very little money, and it protects you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yes. It's one of the best resources for product developers and inventors. And I have a contact of mine that he he doesn't brag about himself, but he's one of my favorite people. His name is Brock Coles. And Brock invented the swiper that you see when you go to like a Coke machine and you want to swipe for just $1 or something, like a low amount of money. He invented that, 15 years ago, whenever it came out. Built that company into a large brand that hit the stock market, sold it off, and then went on and worked with brands like Coca-Cola. He was the lead engineer in the Coca-Cola Freestyle machine. So the big machine you see where you press the different flavors and it adds it to your Coke. And so he's very well accomplished, but basically he's been able financially to step back and basically work with inventors now. So he just does nothing but provisional patent. Well, not just provisional. He's an agent now. So he can do full-blown patent applications. But this man has filed patents and he does consistently for Coca-Cola, for all these major brands. And that's all they do is file provisional patents. They file hundreds, if not thousands, of provisional patents on ideas that they're working on for the same reason you and I would, because they're working on them. They don't need to invest 15 grand to put a full patent in place yet, because they don't even know if they're going forward with it. And you can do the same. Like you said, you can either go through someone like Brock, who will charge you $350, to file a patent, a provisional patent on your product. And then it holds your place. Essentially, it holds your place for a year to file the full patent. And it's sometimes important, like you said, you can do your own drawings, but it's sometimes it's important to go through someone like Brock, who knows how to draft that first one, because it has to line up with what your full-blown patent is going to look like. So if you do it one way and then you develop this product 10 different ways and it looks completely different, it's not going to, they're not going to take that original provisional patent and line those two up. They're not going to accept them as the same. So you do want to try to get as close as you can to the finished design and then do your provisional that way. But they're great resource.
It really is, and they don't have to do a patent check. They don't have to do a search. They don't have to do again all of those costs that are associated with a real, we'll call it a real patent. Aren't there. And so it's a very inexpensive way to protect yourself. But then you can go out and tell the world at that point. You can start talking to people without the fear that they're going to steal something from you. So.
I think that's the biggest pitfall that I've seen with inventors is they all have this fear that they've got this $1 million idea and everybody's going to steal it. And the reality is most people aren't in the position to steal it. You know, they don't know how to manufacture a product. Even the companies you go to aren't in the position to steal these ideas. What happens is, and you've seen this through our Shark Tank friends, products and our ideas are stolen once they're already proven. So, the Easy Peasy mat is the perfect example. It was a very big hit on Shark Tank. It was the rubber silicone mat that sticks to the table. Nubby is one of the companies that knocked it off. I'll call them out because they did. Yep. And they did this with, I think Lindsay is her name, the inventor. They did this with her product after because it was such a hit. Same for bunch of balloons, the balloons where you blow up a bunch of balloons at one time. Yep. Josh Malone, he invented that. And then after it was a hit with Zulu, it got knocked off Zulu, I think, is who knocked it off. But anyway, it's once these things become a household name that they're knocking them off. They're not going to a company. You're not going to a Rubbermaid and going, look, this is my idea. And they're going, oh, this is fantastic. We're going to run with this. They've got other plans in place that they're working on. It's not, manufacturing your idea. So I would definitely encourage people to get rid of that fear that everybody's out to steal your idea. Do put some protections in place. Like you said, do a provisional so you feel a little more at ease, do an NDA, and then hit the ground running because you've got to go quick.
Yes, absolutely. And you have to put effort in, it took, again, for you, I'm sure even with Barbara's help and all that stuff, it still took a tremendous amount of effort. Like you were on national TV, you had Barbara Corcoran with you, and it still took you three years to draw a salary. I mean, it's work to get a new product into any space. So
yes. I think that's such a great example. They need to look to us Shark Tank companies to see that, yes, we've had some success with the exposure, but we're still struggling and we're still building and we're doing all these things, even with that exposure. Imagine if you didn't have it. So yeah, you've really got to grind to have a chance at surviving in this product development world.
But it is a lot of fun to see a product that showed up in a dream or however you came up with that inspiration to actually see it out in the wild. It's like having a kid in a lot of ways. Yes. It really is. You're like the proud papa or the proud mama, doing that. So What have you been doing? We don't have much time left, but what you mentioned Mom Genius, you mentioned some other things. What are you doing now? Like if somebody's listening and they were like, hey, I have this great idea and I think Tiffany might want to, like, what's...
I'm doing a lot of different things, but partly just that's how my journey ended up is once I built Ava, I sold Ava and, or not sold, I licensed Ava at 7 years in. About 7 years in, Barbara stopped investing. We licensed the product off to a company called Baby Delight for 3 years. And so for that 3 years, I had this freedom for the first time ever. I wasn't doing the heavy lifting of the company. I wasn't doing anything but the marketing of the brand, of the product. And during that time, I started a company called Mom Genius, which is basically an incubator for products. We're about to launch one of the first ones that was submitted through that brand. And we do a lot of other work with other companies through that company that we don't really share publicly yet. It just kind of happened organically. Like, for example, I'm pitching a product on QVC right now for a brand that's already a fully developed product, and they just happened to come through Mom Genius. So some of that was just organically happened and wasn't intentional. I do a podcast for inventors, and that started out as a give back about almost 5 years ago, which I hate because I hate the sound of my voice. I hated recording it at first. I was like, what am I doing? But it ended up being a very good resource because I had inventors coming to me time and time again, over and over again with the same questions like you get. And I finally came to the point of, oh, this is great. If I do this podcast and I focus on different topics, I can direct them to that episode. So I can say, oh, okay, you're asking this, go to this episode. We talk about provisional patents, or we talk about this. And so we've covered, it feels like we're going to run out of topics, but we never quite do. We're 5 years in and we've just gone through, because that's how complex this, product development space is. If you're doing different types of products, it changes for each one. And so I still do that as a give back. I have some great partners on that show that we highlight every month. So that's just been kind of a fun give back project that I keep doing.
What's the podcast called?
And then it's called Product Genius.
Product Genius. And it's on all the Apple and
all the different, iHeartRadio, Apple, every podcasting platform. So it's been a great thing.
You were a host on iHeart for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, well, the show moved to there because we were on this thing called Business Radio X when we first started. Again, I did it as a big give back on there, and then got acknowledged by iHeart and decided to move over. So, cool. So yeah, we love doing that. That's just kind of a fun way to give back and to help a lot of people at one time. And then I'm a mom of 3, about to have number 4, and I'm still developing products. Thank you. Yeah. So my favorite part, though, is developing my goal for the next, 10 years is develop products that specifically serve the special needs community and people with disabilities. That is where my heart has always been. It's obviously where I started my journey. And so now I'm finally in a financial position and a management position where Ava's taken care of, where Mom Genius has a team, where I can really, dive into some of these products that I know serve that community that I love so much. So that's going to be my goal.
Wow, you're doing a lot. This is amazing. And it all started back, season 1, episode 1, deal number 1.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me and talking to the listeners. Anywhere else they can get a hold of you? If I guess is it momgenius.com?
Yes, momgenius.com. And then I have my own personal website, tiffanykrumins.com. Where I share those podcasts that we record, and I've got some consulting options on there and a little course that I did. And I don't really push that. That's more of there as a resource. If people find it and they stumble on it, that's great. But I try not to push it because I want people that are serious, if I'm going to consult with them, that they're really serious about their product. And so I've done quite a few of those since I launched it, but it's just another way for me to connect with people.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I hope that all of our listeners got so much there's so much great content that you just threw out there over the last half an hour. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm inspired by your podcast setup. Maybe I need to get like a cool black background type thing that you got going on there.
Well, next time you're up in the Pittsburgh area, you can come on in. We'll do one in person. You can check it out. So.
I can come by anyway and see your facility because we're going to have flex screens in our house soon.
Yeah, so, you're measuring. That's it for your new house. So
yeah,
can't wait to get those in.
Very exciting.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into the first edition of Lessons from the Tank podcast. If you got value of what you heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. If you'd like to learn more about Joe, you can visit joealtieri.com And if you'd like to learn more about Tiffany, you can visit tiffanykrumins.com. Thank you so much for supporting our podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.